Look, I know it's a little bit greener on the bubbles today, but I just can't ignore what I see in the Bitcoin charts. And what I see in the Bitcoin charts is very simple. You see this formation over here, which broke down, which took Bitcoin all the way from here, from 92,000 all the way, and eventually broke down at 89,000 and went all the way down to 59,000. I'm seeing the same pattern again. It's that bearish flag, right? So if you look at this bearish flag over here, we went down just like we did over here. We went back up and we went back up and we tried to break through it 3 times. 1, 2. Here we tried to break it 2 times. And then on the 4th time, we broke all the way down. Now, when we broke that bearish flag, we then went up and we tested it again. And now if you look at the charts over here, we are testing it again. So I know the bubbles are green, but I just cannot be bullish with this current setup. And I'm going to show you what it's going to take for me to actually get bullish. There are a couple of things that could make me bullish, and I want to show you one by one what they are. But until then, I have to remain bearish, because when I see a pattern that I recognize in the charts, I have to respect the pattern. I'll show you where that pattern also invalidates and where we can move on to the next pattern in the chart. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to do a quick alpha-filled show. You ready, Hardus?
I'm ready.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. I mean, the reason why we are green today is because on Friday, if you look at the charts on Friday, and specifically, I want to take you to the NASDAQ, the NQ, and I want to take you to Friday. And I want to show you something on Friday when the markets actually close. You see, here's Friday. And what you can see is, actually, wait, let's just go to Friday. Monday, Friday. What you can see is that we closed into the death of the NASDAQ. We went very, 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 very hard into the death. Now, what that means is that on Friday, the markets were preparing themselves for something. What were they preparing themselves for? They were preparing themselves for the after hours market announcement, where Trump was going to announce some kind of ground invasion or something. And that's why the markets responded like they responded. Come the weekend, it was a relatively peaceful weekend, other than the fact that the Houthis kind of said that they're going to enter the war. I think at this stage, nobody really minds about the Houthis. But what happened was, we got to Monday morning and nothing had happened over the weekend. So all these people that were bracing for impact, bracing for the worst, well, basically arrived back on Monday morning and said, okay, we never got the ground invasion. We never got the Trump big announcement. Let's start bidding the whole thing back up. Problem is that they are bidding the whole thing back up, but it's not enough to get us back into this formation, right? We need to get back above this level over here convincingly, right? Now, we are now at the dirtiest, worst point, right? The worst point here is the fact that if you buy somewhere over here because you think, oh, well, we're going back up. Problem is you get rejected. If we get rejected and we go all the way down here, right? We could go down as much as we went down last time. Now, just to give you an idea of where we went down to last time, we went from $90,000 and we went all the way down to $60,000. We lost 1/3 of Bitcoin's value, 33% of Bitcoin's value over there, right? And now the same thing could basically happen. So if we don't break above this line over here, then this bear flag breakdown is confirmed, and this is just a retest. And if it is just a retest, we could go back down to 40K, which, if you remember, I made a video and said that would be like my lowest target. 43K, that would be my lowest target for this market. In the meantime, unfortunately, Bitcoin has now given back every single amount. You remember all those charts where everyone said, oh, Bitcoin's been the best performing asset in the war, and it's been up, and gold's been down, and silver's been down, and the S&P's been down. Well, it gave back all those. It gave back everything. And look, to be honest, if you look at it, it's still relatively flat on the war. Let's just quickly get you an exact number. So if I look at the beginning of the war, remember the war started 28th of Feb. So it is over here, 28th of Feb. Okay, it is over here. So we started the war at 65,000. We're at 67,000. So you got yourself a 2 or 3% return for this war. And actually, if you wanted to be a little bit more critical, you can kind of say, okay, well, you know what? We are still the best performing asset in this war. At the same time, the one thing that really, really worries me is the S&P 500. And the reason why the S&P 500 worries me is because, look, just look at this channel. This is the channel of the S&P 500 all the way from 2018. You can see that every time we touch the line, we break down, we go back to the bottom of the channel, we then go back up, we touch the line, we break down, we go to the bottom of the channel. And so the same thing is happening. Now, look at this pattern over here. This pattern is definitely broken down. The chart formation is definitely broken down. And it feels like it's almost inevitable that this chart pattern just carries on doing this, and then all the way goes back down here. And that's why on the weekend I basically tweeted, I said, look, for me, you know, like the way I look at it, my target for the S&P 500 is this 5,600, right? For me, the target on the S&P 500 is this 5,600. I'm hoping that we will grind down really slowly until we actually get there, and then we don't have some kind of correction. Because if we have a correction, then we could really emulate this pattern over here, right? We could emulate this whole pattern over here. I'm trying very much not to emulate this pattern, or hoping that we're not going to emulate this pattern over here. And that's why I'm hoping that we get a slow and steady grind down with the S&P 500, an orderly grind down, maybe to 56 or 5,700. I'm going to start buying at about 58, 5,900, because you know, you never try and pick a bottom. Hardest, do you know what happens to people who try and pick a bottom?
Not really.
Have you ever tried to pick a bottom?
Get your hands dirty.
You'll get your hands dirty. You'll get a very smelly finger if you try and pick a bottom. So don't try and pick a bottom. So as Ash Crypto says, the S&P 500 has now closed 5 consecutive weeks in the red. That's where the S&P 500 is now. On top of that, you have a bearish crossover on the RSIs on the monthly, which means from a monthly point of view, the S&P 500 doesn't look good. The S&P 500 has had 3 green weeks in the first 12 weeks of the year. This is the worst start to a year in history. The truth is, though, that I do believe that Trump and them kind of saw this coming. Now, I don't know if they worked out exactly how much the collateral damage was going to be, but I do believe that when they entered into this war with Iran, they knew that there was going to be some kind of damage. And I think Besson said it before. He said, would you rather have 50 years of Iran, or would you rather have 50 days of this fighting? Obviously, the answer is that we'd rather have this 50 days of fighting and then completely get rid of Iran. But now the war costs are actually starting to mount up, right? So on the one hand, I can tell you where I live in South Africa, we don't have diesel in the pumps. Why? Because everyone is so worried about the price increases that they've all gone and bought all the diesel, right? And so the problem is that you now can't get diesel. You can't get diesel in South Africa. Everything is going up. Prices are starting to go up, etc., etc. And we were expecting some good news this week. We were expecting JD Vance to go to Pakistan to negotiate. He didn't go to Pakistan this weekend. Iran. Tell you what, you can listen to what he says.
Considering still putting boots on the ground, and would you do that without going to Congress?
We have tremendous numbers of ships over there. We don't need them all because of, you know, the power. Look, I would say we're just like we're ahead of schedule in the ballroom. In a much bigger way, we're ahead of schedule with Iran. We're weeks ahead of schedule. If you would have said that in 3 days we were going to knock out 158 ships, their entire Navy.
So Trump basically saying, listen, we're ahead of schedule. Everything's fine. Everything's going to be okay. Guys, this has cost the world over $12 trillion. There are countries in the world that don't have petrol, don't have diesel, don't have gas, don't have fertilizer. This war basically needs to end. If this war doesn't end, I'm very worried about the S&P 500 actually breaking down and carrying on with this channel. So for now, my trade is no trade.
I know it's a little green on the bubbles today, but I just can't ignore what I see.
Listen to that. Now my phone's going crazy. If I'm listening to myself on my phone. At least I'm the only viewer. I press the like button. I press the like button. I subscribe, which is, by the way, what you guys should be doing. It's also kind of confusing because I'm really interested to know who the US is actually negotiating with, right? And I think it's a real question. Like, when you've wiped out the administration, and then you've wiped out the replacement for the administration, and then you've wiped out the replacement for the replacement for the administration, who's left? Like, who are you negotiating with? Who are you making peace with? Who actually has the torch? Who actually has the power to negotiate with you? That's the part that I'm trying to work out now. Trump says the United States is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. Great progress has been made. But if for any reason the deal is not shortly reached, which it will be, and the Strait of Hormuz is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating the electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island, which we have purposely not touched yet. This will be retribution for our many soldiers and others that Iran has butchered and killed over the regime's 47 years. That's quite a threat. That came out 127, so that came out about 2 hours ago. Just so that you guys know, prices continue to go up, etc. So that is the prognosis. Now, I said to you guys in the beginning of the show, I cannot be bullish on Bitcoin until, right? And I think let's just look at why I'm not bullish. So the first reason why I'm not bullish is I'm not bullish because until we break into this formation or break out of the top of this formation, I can't be bullish. But then there are a couple of other things. Number one, which is for me actually quite interesting. This is the first week that Strategy didn't buy any Bitcoin. Strategy announces that it did not buy any Bitcoin over the past week. That's quite big, guys. If the price can maintain when Strategy is not buying, that's a good thing. Now we know why the price came down, though. The price came down from 71 or 72 to 66 because Strategy wasn't there to actually be buying. Let's see what happens if Strategy doesn't buy. Let's see what lands up happening to the things, to the price. Then on Bitcoin, we have the 3-day death cross. Now, I don't really like talking about the 3-day death cross, but this is very, 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 very accurate. Every time we have a 3-day death cross, we then get a massive dip down. In the next 30 days, we get to the next low. Now, we had the 3-day death cross, I think, on the 27th of Feb. So we should go down to the next low pretty soon. Also, if you look at on the weekly and you look at the Gaussian channel, we've now broken down and the channels actually become red. When this channel becomes red, we usually have a sharp decline. When you look at MicroStrategy broke the 200-week SMA, and usually what happens is Bitcoin follows. So MicroStrategy breaks first and then Bitcoin follows. So just from all the charting perspectives, and as Ben Khan says, it's not really looking that good at the moment. That's why I'm not bullish at the moment. Tomorrow is the last day of March. I mean, if we carry on like this, Bitcoin closes the month even Stevens. That would make, if we go red, it would make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red months in a row. The last time we had 6 red months in a row, I think was here in 2018. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After that, we got 5 green months. So let's hope that if we do get a negative close, that we get the same result as we got with the last one. Right? That's basically what we can do. When it comes to the Clarity Act, because that's the next piece of information or the next piece of news that's out there is the Clarity Act. So the Clarity Act talks stalled in Washington because of the yield position that Coinbase took and said they cannot accept the wording. The information that I'm getting, which is, by the way, not being reflected in Polymarket. So either my information is wrong or Polymarket is wrong. Someone is wrong. I don't like being wrong, but I mean, I guess in this case, I've got to be open to the fact that maybe my sources and my birdies are all wrong, right? So the Clarity Act right now, apparently Coinbase are going to revert with new wording, and they're very, very, very close to getting it right. They have to get it right now, before in the next 30 days. If they don't, then there's a big chance we never see a Clarity Act, because when the Democrats win the House and they win the Senate, then we get Elizabeth Warren back. We may, you know what? We may even get 𝗙𝗘𝗓𝗪 back. We may actually even get, believe it or not, if the Democrats win, we actually may get 𝗙𝗘𝗓𝗪 back. Hardest. Can you believe that? Can you imagine a world with 𝗙𝗘𝗓𝗪 back, bro? Terrible. Yeah, someone says holy. Imagine that. Guys, it's not 17 of you. The counter on YouTube's broken today. The counter on YouTube's broken. All right, guys, before I go, one last thing. I'm reminding you that there's 3 days left in this CoinW promotion. This CoinW promotion is like this. It's called like a super bonus promotion, right? So what happens is the more you deposit, the more you get, right? So let's say you deposit 1,500, you get let me actually give you the actual numbers here, because I think it's unfair that Johnny doesn't actually give them the numbers on the page, because I don't know if you're supposed to work it out. You see, let's have a look here. Let's quickly go to, let's look at, okay, so here's how it works. If you deposit 300, you get $60. If you deposit 500, you get $100. If you deposit 3,000, you get $250. If you deposit 10,000, you get $1,500. These are super bonuses. So what you do, you sign up on CoinW. There's a link below, non-KYC exchange. Sign up, deposit your money, claim your bonus, trade your bonus, withdraw your money. See how it works? So simple. Anyway, that is me for today. Very quick update today, because there's not really much happening. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, if you're trading, if you're still alive, trade well, my friends.